Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
Even in the quiet countryside, you can find unexpected romance. Let me share my story. I'm Tyler Smith, a 68-year-old retired accountant living in a peaceful rural area that I've called home for many years. My daily routine is simple but satisfying. I wake up early to tend to my vegetable garden, finding peace in the morning dew, rich soil scent, and gentle sway of plants in the breeze. My wife Mary and I share quiet lunches together, then I spend my afternoons reading the newspaper thoroughly. Come evening, I help with dinner prep, and at night, we sit across from each other at the table watching TV. These were seemingly tranquil days, one flowing into the next. Looking back at my younger years, I was a workaholic who put career above family. Romance and passionate love affairs weren't part of my story. While I don't necessarily regret this path, I now realize I may have buried certain desires deep within. Despite my content life with Mary in my golden years, I could feel long dormant desires beginning to stir in my heart. Being in my 60s, I'd resign myself to a predictable future without dramatic changes. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't unhappy. Mary and I had built a solid, argument-free relationship. Still, the sameness of each day left me feeling somewhat empty. Then came the day that would shake up my routine existence. While working in my garden as usual, Emily, my new neighbor, called out to me. "Mr. Smith, could I ask for your help?" she said, leaning over the backyard fence. Emily was an attractive woman in her late 30s who had recently moved in with her husband. Lately, though, her husband had left the picture, leaving her on her own. Despite my initial hesitation, I agreed to help and went over to her place. Her garden was clearly untended since her husband left. "I'm sorry," Emily said with an apologetic smile. "Since my husband left, I haven't been able to maintain it." Something about her gentle voice and warm smile stirred feelings I thought long forgotten. As we worked together, I could sense her loneliness. "Being alone gives you too much time to think," she mused while we tended to her garden. Her words struck a chord deep within me. I understood that loneliness all too well. Though Mary was physically present, years of routine had gradually reduced our conversations to a minimum, creating an emotional distance between us. After finishing Emily's garden that day and receiving her grateful thanks, I headed home, but her smile lingered in my thoughts, igniting a spark in my chest. Something told me my predictable life was about to change course. While I couldn't pinpoint exactly what I was searching for, meeting Emily had definitely awakened dormant emotions. Though my life with Mary wasn't bad by any means, suppressed desires began bubbling to the surface. Even as I tried to convince myself that such feelings were inappropriate at my age, I couldn't help feeling confused by these reawakening emotions. On a friend's recommendation, I visited a local bar for the first time in years. While bars weren't usually my scene, I figured a change of pace might do me good. The Sunset Bar, though unassuming from outside, revealed a cozy interior. Several middle-aged regulars sat at the counter, engaged in friendly banter. But what really caught my attention was Jessica, the bartender. She was in her mid-40s, but could easily pass for younger, with a magnetic smile that lit up the room. Her presence transformed the bar's atmosphere completely. Jessica had a natural talent for creating a welcoming environment, easily engaging in conversation with the male patrons. The moment we took our seats, she greeted us with a warm, genuine smile. "First time here? Welcome," she said cheerfully. I felt butterflies in my stomach, not being used to casual conversation with women. Picking up on my nervousness, she playfully quipped, "No need for the jitters," as she slid a cold beer my way. My friend hit it off with Jessica right away, and she seamlessly joined our conversation. What started as simple small talk evolved as Jessica took a particular interest in me. "So Tyler, what kept you busy before retirement?" she asked. "Oh, just pushing numbers as an accountant," I replied modestly. Jessica let out a warm laugh. No way. You've got too much personality for that. I bet there's more to your story. She had an incredible knack for keeping the conversation flowing. As I opened up about my past and current life in the countryside, she listened with genuine interest, peppering our chat with witty comments that kept me engaged. Her warm smile and friendly demeanor awakened something in me that had been dormant for years. The attention from such an attractive woman was intoxicating, something I hadn't experienced in my quiet rural life for ages. When she said, "If only our paths had crossed when I was younger," I couldn't help but grin. Trust me, I wasn't exactly Prince Charming, I responded sheepishly. She gave me a meaningful look and said, "Hey, life's full of surprises. It's never too late." Her boldness caught me off guard, but it stirred something deep inside. When my friend excused himself, Jessica moved closer, keeping our conversation going. "How do you spend your days?" "With Mary?" she asked carefully. "Yeah, keeping things low-key," I replied honestly. She smiled warmly and said, "That's sweet, but sometimes you need to shake things up a bit, like tonight." In that moment, I rediscovered the simple joy of connecting with someone new. When I was working, I never made time for moments like these. But now, having this attractive woman show genuine interest in me set my pulse racing. Later that night, after leaving Sunset Bar, I couldn't get Jessica's radiant smile and sweet voice out of my head. Her presence had awakened feelings I thought were long gone. While my life with Mary was comfortable, meeting Jessica had injected a fresh energy into my routine existence. Though uncertain where these emotions might lead, I knew that night marked a turning point. Jessica's image kept floating through my mind in the days that followed. Even as I went about my usual routine with Mary, thoughts of that captivating woman kept running through my mind. Who would have thought I'd experience such powerful emotions in my 60s? Unable to resist the pull, I found myself back at Sunset Bar a few days later. As I stepped inside, the familiar cozy atmosphere enveloped me. Jessica spotted me immediately, her face lighting up with a welcoming smile that made my heart skip a beat. There was something magnetic about her expression. "Look who's back," she said warmly. "I really enjoyed our chat the other night," I admitted shyly, which made her smile grow even brighter. Taking my usual spot at the counter, I accepted the beer she offered, and when our fingers brushed during the exchange, I felt a spark between us. As our conversations deepened, we clicked instantly. She was genuinely interested in my stories about life in the corporate world, the mistakes of my youth, and my current hobbies and daily routines. Her engaging responses made me open up more than usual, and before I knew it, I was sharing stories and laughing freely. "You know, Tyler, you're really easy to talk to," Jessica remarked unexpectedly. "I thought you'd be all business, but you've got quite a fun side," she teased. I chuckled and said, "Well, I've always been known as the serious type," but I couldn't deny how drawn I was to her vibrant personality. As the evening wore on and patrons gradually filtered out, the bar took on an intimate vibe. The growing moments we spent alone at the counter created an almost magical ambience. Then came the invitation that would change everything. "Care to stick around a while longer?" she asked with a hint of suggestion in her voice. It caught me off guard. I hadn't expected this turn of events. Despite my usual reserve around women and the internal struggle about how to proceed, I felt my usual defenses crumbling. There was something magnetic in Jessica's gaze. "Would that be okay?" I asked tentatively. Jessica's warm smile brightened as she replied, "Of course. I'd love to spend more time with just us," making it sound like the most natural thing in the world. Her words awakened something that had been dormant inside me. "I guess I could stay a bit longer," I found myself saying as I moved closer. When Jessica's hand brushed against mine, an unfamiliar warmth spread through me. The long-buried desires in my heart couldn't resist her gentle charm. We left the bar together and headed to a nearby lounge at her suggestion. There, time seemed to stand still in the cozy atmosphere. Though we didn't say much, I could feel something profound shifting within me. Even as I noticed my life taking an unexpected turn, I felt powerless to stop it. That night, I found myself following Jessica's lead as if I'd become someone else entirely. Despite the nagging feeling telling me to stop, it was surprisingly easy to ignore. Walking to her apartment, I felt my usually cautious nature melting away. Typically, I would have declined such an invitation, but there was something irresistible about Jessica's gaze. Her apartment, though modest, reflected her warm and sophisticated nature. With casual grace, she headed straight to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of red wine. "Make yourself at home," she said with that disarming smile, offering me a glass. Despite my inner hesitation, I settled beside her. When Jessica placed her hand over mine, I felt years of suppressed emotions beginning to surface. My body's natural response both thrilled and frightened me, but I didn't want to fight it. "It's been so long since I've had a moment like this," she whispered softly. Though taken aback by her directness, I could only nod in response. Jessica leaned in closer, her face inches from mine. Then, with a gentle exhale, she pressed her lips to mine. In that instant, all my carefully constructed barriers crumbled. How many years, no, decades, had passed since I'd experienced this kind of intimacy? The softness of her lips, the warmth of her skin sent electric currents through my entire body. "Just follow my lead," Jessica murmured as her hand moved to my shirt. Her touch made all my doubts disappear, and despite my initial surprise at her boldness, I found myself surrendering completely. Each caress awakened sensations I'd long forgotten existed. It had been ages since I'd felt such intense emotions stirring within me. That night, we held each other with intense passion, lost in a timeless embrace. Jessica radiated youth and beauty, her confident movements captivating me completely. Every fiber of my being tingled with an excitement I hadn't experienced in what felt like forever. Under her gentle guidance, I discovered a boldness I never knew I possessed. Each caress of Jessica's hand, every shared breath, awakened long-dormant sensations as passion coursed through me. As the night progressed, I tenderly wrapped my arms around her shoulders. When Jessica melted into my embrace, we connected in a way that felt incredibly natural and right. In that moment, desire overwhelmed me so completely that my age became meaningless. Everything just felt perfectly natural. Catching Jessica's soft gaze, I couldn't help but marvel at experiencing such an incredible night at this stage of my life. Through her, all those suppressed emotions finally found release, and I remained fully immersed in our special connection until dawn. Even as morning light crept in, my heart continued to race. My once predictable life had transformed dramatically since meeting Jessica. I found myself eagerly anticipating our next encounter, unable to contain the youthful excitement bubbling up inside me. Never did I imagine that in my 60s, my heart could still flutter like a teenager's. Time with Jessica sparked something that had been missing from my quiet life with my wife. Jessica's authenticity was refreshing. She was never pretentious. Her carefree spirit and ability to live in the moment made me feel completely at ease. Her uninhibited nature awakened feelings I'd forgotten existed. Being with her was like stepping into an alternate reality where everyday concerns faded away. I surrendered to the natural progression of our connection as we shared wine and conversation. The allure in Jessica's deep, expressive eyes was simply impossible to resist. Whenever I entered her apartment, Jessica would approach deliberately under the soft ambient lighting. Her warmth seemed to melt away years of loneliness and unfulfilled yearning. The gentle way she traced her fingers along my arm before embracing me, the natural confidence with which she took the lead, it was incredibly attractive. These sensations had been foreign to me for decades. Truth be told, even in my younger years, I'd never experienced anything quite this intense. Jessica opened my eyes to new emotions and thrills. As we found our rhythm together, expressing my feelings came naturally. When she flashed that smile and asked if I was happy, I could only respond with complete honesty. I truly was. Deep down, I knew this relationship with Jessica couldn't last forever. She wasn't seeking any long-term commitments or promises either. We simply existed in the present moment together. But that was enough. Time with Jessica injected new energy and joy into my life. Back in my regular routine, memories of Jessica would warm my heart. Her presence had made me feel more alive than I had in years. While I had my peaceful moments with my wife, Jessica had reignited passions I thought were long extinguished. Though I knew this wouldn't last forever, I cherished every exciting moment with her. Who would have thought that at this stage of life, such profound happiness was still possible? The nights with Jessica were breathing new life into my existence. Each evening in her company transported me to a different reality, where her passionate advances awakened sensations I'd forgotten existed. But returning home felt like going back to my mundane reality, back to the mundane rhythm of everyday life. My relationship with Mary had settled into a familiar but lifeless routine. Our once flowing conversations had reduced to brief exchanges. During dinner, we'd sit with minimal words exchanged, the TV's drone filling our silence. Mary's occasional, "How was your day?" would hang in the air, met with brief responses that led nowhere. What used to feel like comfortable silence now weighed heavy between us. Jessica's presence lingered in my thoughts, making the contrast with my life at home even more pronounced. Mary remained completely unaware of my double life. She couldn't fathom that her husband was spending nights with another woman. Even I struggled to comprehend how I'd ended up having an affair after decades of marriage. But Jessica made me feel like a different person, and that transformation was addictively powerful. Mary had done nothing wrong. She'd been the perfect wife, creating our peaceful home. Yet I couldn't resist Jessica's pull. Though my mind understood the self-destructive nature of this situation, my body craved Jessica's touch. The electricity of our encounters, her melodic voice, the softness of her skin. These were sensations absent from my life with Mary. As things progressed with Jessica, my guilt toward Mary intensified. While she carried on with her daily routine, completely trusting and unaware, I continued my betrayal. Watching her go about her day, showing no hint of suspicion, would sometimes make my chest tighten with remorse. Yet even that guilt couldn't keep me from Jessica. I kept asking myself what made her so irresistible. The answer lay in her uninhibited nature, her ability to freely express her emotions and desires. With her, I could be completely authentic, without holding anything back. It was both liberating and overwhelming. Meanwhile, my relationship with Mary had become a well-rehearsed routine. The love wasn't gone, but the spark had dimmed to a quiet glow. Just peaceful, predictable days stretching endlessly. The contrast left me feeling torn and frustrated. I knew a choice loomed between them, but I couldn't bring myself to make it. The decades with Mary and these passionate moments with Jessica both felt impossible to surrender. Each time I headed to Jessica's place, I'd think, this needs to stop. But that resolution would evaporate the moment I saw her. Her warm smile, her tender touch, those intimate moments we shared, they'd pull me right back in. Then facing Mary afterward would remind me how much this affair was just an escape from reality. But I felt powerless to end it. I felt torn between these two worlds. That night, when Jessica began speaking in an unusually serious tone, I felt an unexpected weariness settle over me. Her typically carefree demeanor gave way to something deeper, revealing layers I hadn't known existed. "I used to hold back so much, just like you do," Jessica mused, swirling her wine thoughtfully. Her expression carried a shadow I'd never seen before. Even in my marriage, I kept everything bottled up. I was so caught up in meeting everyone else's expectations that I lost touch with my own feelings. Her words resonated deeply within me. I recognized myself in her description, how I'd unconsciously suppressed my own nature throughout my married life. Trading authenticity for stability had seemed like the natural course, but Jessica's words suddenly made me see this pattern clearly. But now, I refuse to hold back, she continued with quiet conviction. I've chosen to live truthfully, following my heart and desires. Being with you is part of that freedom. Her words comforted me. I realized Jessica wasn't just seeking casual pleasure. She was on her own journey of liberation after years of self-denial. What I'd initially viewed as a simple affair suddenly revealed itself as something more profound. I sat there speechless, processing this revelation. I'd never imagined Jessica carried such emotional depth beneath her confident exterior. I'd misjudged her as simply being young and adventurous. But beneath Jessica's carefree demeanor lay a deeper struggle for self-discovery. As I began to open up, emotions I'd bottled up for years came pouring out. I realized I'd been living behind a mask too. After marriage, I'd gotten so caught up in being the perfect husband that I'd locked away my true feelings and desires. That's why being with Jessica felt like finally being able to breathe again. The raw honesty in my own words caught me off guard. After hearing Jessica share her true feelings, I couldn't keep my own hidden truth buried any longer. Jessica listened intently to my confession, acknowledging with quiet nods. "We're kindred spirits," she said with a knowing smile. "That's why we click so well. We can finally be our authentic selves." In that moment of clarity, I understood that what Jessica and I shared went way beyond physical attraction. She had become a mirror, reflecting back parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. This wasn't just some midlife fling. It was a profound awakening. That night's revelations changed how I saw Jessica completely. Rather than just an escape from routine, she had become the key to unlocking my true self. The time we spent together filled a void I hadn't even known was there. That night, reality finally caught up with me. I knew our relationship had to end. Though Jessica had awakened feelings and experiences I never thought possible at my age, my heart knew this couldn't be forever. At over 60, I had to face facts. This beautiful but fleeting moment needed to close. Our time together had been like living in a dream, but my life with Mary, built over decades of marriage, was my real world. On our last evening together, we sat in the heavy silence of Jessica's apartment. The usual city sounds and TV chatter seemed muffled and distant. I struggled to find the right words, my heart racing as I tried to piece together what to say. Finally, gathering my courage, I broke the silence. "Jessica, we need to end this." The words felt like they were being ripped from my chest. Jessica met my gaze with understanding in her eyes, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "I know, Tyler," she replied with a gentle smile that held both wisdom and acceptance. She too had always known this was temporary. "Thank you for everything. What we shared has meant the world to me," Jessica said, offering a bittersweet smile that spoke volumes. Her expression balanced sadness with acceptance of our reality. We spent our final night together mostly in silence. Our last embrace wasn't filled with passion like before, but instead held a quiet reverence, a grateful acknowledgement of what we'd meant to each other. Dawn broke on our final morning together. I lay there beside Jessica, steeling myself to return to my regular life. I ran my fingers through her hair one last time, my heart already beginning to ache with goodbye. When I said, "I should get going," Jessica managed a brave smile and simply whispered, "Take care." Those three words carried the weight of everything left unsaid. Our farewell played out like a scene from a bittersweet romance. I stepped back into my everyday routine, knowing things would never be quite the same. While my steady life with Mary continued as always, my time with Jessica had left an indelible mark. It had been like experiencing a second youth, a gift I never expected. Meeting Jessica had forced me to confront my deepest desires and reflect on who I really was as I entered this stage of life. As I settled back into my daily rhythm, I promised myself to live more mindfully and authentically, carrying the lessons of our time together in my heart.